Good night tonight. Really, really excited about the two guys that we were able to acquire tonight. Obviously, Anthony's a huge man. He's really versatile, like as you guys know, we really like. I think he's got probably the ability to play all four positions. He's never really done any center, but he can probably play both tackles and both guard spots. He's a mauler in the run game. He's very athletic. He really checked a lot of boxes for us all the way through. Had a great Senior Bowl, and just he was one of those guys that. You just never know if you're going to be able to acquire, but he's just got so much power in his body. He just really fit what we're going to do. And then coming back with Savion, it was just didn't think I'd be up here talking about taking two receivers, but when he was up there, he was just another one of our staff favorites across the board, and just so versatile, so many different things. I think he's one of those guys that Matt and his offensive staff, just the creativity they can use this guy in so many different ways that it was just we were really excited to get him. So. Again, I think we did some good for the Packers. We got a big day tomorrow, a bunch more picks, and the board's looking pretty good, so we're excited about it.
You have a young quarterback that's obviously still developing. All three of your picks so far are on offense, and you sort of seem designed to help him with his development. How important was that to you, and how much do you think you've accomplished in being able to help Jordan?
Yeah, it really wasn't, to be honest with you, Ryan. It was just kind of how the board fell, to be honest, and So I think his development. We have a lot of guys in house that I think you're going to develop. The guys that we already have within our roster right now, I think he's developing with. These guys are going to add to that, and it'll be great competition. And certainly we're excited to see what these young guys' roles will be. But that wasn't a thought process going into this draft. So.
Brian, you drafted two receivers, but they're very different, right?
Yes.
I mean, the versatility and how different they are, what does that do for you, think?
Yeah, I think, again, both of the receivers we drafted, they are different skill sets, but they're both really versatile as well. They both can play outside, they both can play inside. I know I talked about Matthew last night, but Savion, he's 6'4", 222 pounds. He's done a lot of wildcat running back stuff. He's played inside out of the slot. He can play outside. He's so good in the red zone. I just think he's really versatile. And then we talked about Matthew last night too, and we feel he can do both as well. And both guys have return ability, so it's just receivers that can do things with the ball in their hands is very important to us, and both these guys can do that.
With Williams, he's been compared to Cordero Patterson. Obviously, had Ty Montgomery here a while back who did a little bit both. Tyler Urban was kind of a gadget guy. What sort of role do you envision for him?
Yeah, I don't really look at him as a gadget guy. We look at him as a receiver. Obviously he's versatile and he can do a lot of things. I do think he can do some of that stuff that those other guys did as well. But I think he's one of those guys we look at as a receiver that can do all the things that we ask. I do think it's going to be interesting how Matt draws some stuff up. When we had Tyler and did some of those things, I thought it was pretty unique how Matt was able to see him and find areas that he could help us produce. And I think this will be the same way.
Hey, Ryan, you talked early in the offseason about needing to rush the passer better. One of the ways you could have done that was using a top 100 pick at one, either inside or outside. Why did you not do that, and where are you going to get that extra rush now?
Yeah, like I said, I think I feel very good about the guys we got in the building. We do need to improve with our consistency, but there was times we were pretty dominant this year, rushing the passer. So we got the whole day tomorrow too, as well, to see if we can add any competition to that room. But I feel good about those guys on our football team right now. So again, you can't create stuff. You got to build your board and you got to trust it, and that's the way things fell today.
Brian, what do you think is Delton's best position?
That'll be interesting. I think, with his size and length, you certainly want to see if he can do tackle, and he has all the athletic ability to do that. I think he's one of those guys that can fit in where he's needed. So it'll be interesting how we got, with Jordan coming back, and we're so excited about what he can do, and now adding Anthony. We're just really excited about the growth of that entire group, and it really will probably be as we get through this off season and into training camp. Really where Matt and his staff think it's going to be best for him to train right away. So I think once they get to know him a little bit better through that process, it'll probably shake out that way. But I think he could play all four spots with the exception of center. Not that he couldn't play center, but I don't think we really we envision him as that.
Brian, I know he has that moniker of Escalade. Just what do you think about how he kind of blends the athleticism with his size and just what he brings to the table?
Yeah, I think again, obviously he's got great size and he can move people in the run game. I think when down at the Senior Bowl was my first real exposure to him, and just seeing him and his ability to pass block, do all the things that I think that, Matt asked our offensive line guys to do within our scheme. A lot of the movement stuff for a man his size is, I think, what drew us to him.
What makes you think he can play guard? What makes you think Felton can play guard?
Yeah, first of all, he's got exceptional quickness. He bends very well, and then obviously just his power. Like he can handle those guys inside. He can move them off the ball. He can get across the shade and snatch those guys. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think, we had a lot of, conversations about where we think his best position, like Matt asked, and it's just like, whenever you have a guy with that athleticism and that length, you want to start him at tackle, right? And then move him inside. We've done that a lot here, where we've taken guys that played tackle in college and moved them inside. But I think he can play both. I mean, he just, because of his size and power and strength and anchor in the pass game, that's why we think he can play inside.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, he has the length to go with that as well.
Yeah, I think he was like 34 and 5/8, something like that. I mean, I think we had him with about 6 measurements between 33 and 7/8 and 34 and 7/8, something like that. So he's 34 guy. So
With Walker and Morgan already on the left side, are there even enough snaps to play him over there, or do you have to start him, like when camp starts, you have to put him somewhere else?
yeah, again, I think that's going to be determined once we get him in the building. I mean, obviously, I think our coaches need to get with him, but yeah, I mean, I think if you were trying to have all 3 of those guys play left tackle, that might be tough, So, but I think once we get them inside, whether they cross-train him at multiple positions or whether they just stick him in one spot, let him go, we'll see, But like I said, the versatility is something we're interested in.
Is Morgan still definitely gonna compete at left tackle, or is that?
Yeah, that's what I envision. I don't see that changing.
Brian, how much of kind of your future planning about the receiver position plays into taking multiple guys? Maybe you can keep all 4 of those guys on second contracts, but they're all going to be coming up on free agency soon.
Right.
Does that come into account when you're thinking about approaching that?
You're aware of it, but I don't think when we go into the draft, we try to put too much emphasis on that. We're really trying to build the board with the right values and letting it come to us and follow the board. I think if you get into there and try to make decisions in the draft based on too much on that stuff, you can get yourself in trouble and take the wrong guy. So we try to get the values right vertically and horizontally, and then as the draft goes, there's just a lot of uncontrollables in the draft. You try to follow the board the best you can, and that's what we did tonight, and it just that's how it shook out.
Hey Brian, when you started studying Williams, what was the first thing that struck you about him?
His ability with the ball in his hands. He's obviously his size as well. I mean, he's a huge man. But his determination, his ability, his elusiveness, his power, ability to break tackles, I just thought that those were the first things that stuck out to you. Because they moved him all around in different ways, I thought there was a little bit of a rawness to his game as far as the polish as a route runner and things like that. But his ability to create separation and get behind guys vertically, catch the football, all those things, I think were he just really seemed to fit what we're trying to do.
Brian, Savion comes from a TCU program, throwing the ball anywhere from 35 to 50 times a game. Yeah. And their other receiver went in the second round tonight. So, that kind of an air raid program, does that give you a lot of tape on the crispness of the routes and all those other kinds of things?
Yeah, we had a significant amount of tape on Savion. I think, again, I'm sure you guys have probably looked at it as they went through the season, they were just trying to find a way to get the ball in his hands, And they did a ton of wildcat stuff to get him.
Touchdown.
Yeah, we sure did. And then jet sweeps and different kind of things. And he was obviously one of their main playmakers for them this past year. So another kid that we brought up here and had a 30 visit with, spent some time with, and I think we all really felt that he was going to be a good fit here. Again, a guy who's gone through some adversity in his life and come through the other side of it, which that's always one of the things that we look for. And so we're excited to add him to the group.
Brian, based on the way your board looks tonight, do you anticipate moving and collecting more picks, or where do you think you'll end up pick-wise after?
Yeah, we'll see. I certainly would like to. I think that we'll see how it falls tomorrow. But I certainly would like to. I would have liked to have done it before now. That just didn't kind of transpire. I think really the only opportunities probably would have been in the first round, and we didn't want to do that. Real opportunities anyway. And so we'll see. I mean, there's usually over the past few years there's been a lot of movement on the third day, and so we'll see how it goes.
The size of Belton, the size of Aaron Banks that you've added to that offensive line, how much does that have to do with Josh Jacobs as your running back? You have this power running system that you really need to, and that's the identity of your offense, and being able to equip yourself with that kind of size.
Right. No, that's a great question. We've always liked size like that, right? You know, going back to the days of, you know, TJ and Josh and those guys, you know, to be able to move people off the spot. But it's certainly, when you have a power back like Josh and the ability to kind of reset the line of scrimmage, so to speak, is certainly something that we've talked about and is important to us.
When you look at the focus on the offensive line, both in free agency and early in the draft, how often, and is it at all related to last time you guys played, it wasn't the showing that you wanted for this offensive line against a very good Eagles defensive front? Does that, something like that linger with you in the offseason? Does that kind of set priorities when you?
I think, yeah, I think you don't try to be too much of a prisoner of the moment in those things. I'm certainly, you know, I think you're evaluating your team through the entire year, and you're evaluating against, you know, the National Football League and yourselves. And again, I think sometimes when we draft players these days, people think that means something for something else. Sometimes it's just we build a board, and those are the best players available, and that's what we take. And again, I'm glad we're getting bigger. I think back in 2018 when I you know took over this thing, I thought that was critically important that we continued to stay big, and I think we have over the years. And you know, I think it's kind of one of those things where that can get away from you quickly if you don't pay attention to it. So you know, I think we're in pretty good shape right now.
You know, along those lines, are you bigger because you had success with Josh, or was signing Josh the impetus of all this other stuff that's happened?
No, I mean, again, I think we've always tried to stay big, and I don't think anything's really changed. I mean, I think certainly having Josh, you know, again, whether we were, what we've had in the past, I mean, he was going to be that kind of player regardless. So really, having Josh really isn't factor a ton into this. You know what I mean? We would like to be big, you know. So
Like a guy like, you know, Belton, would he have been a guy that you'd have picked 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, he's like the total opposite of like what Zach Thomas. Like,
yeah, I mean, Zach's unique, you know. I mean, but yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think there's certain athletic traits you have to have, but we certainly would like bigger players to have those, you know. But there are athletic traits, and Belton and Banks, the two guys we've kind of added over the offseason, have that.
All 3 of these guys came for pre-draft visits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the board falls the way it falls. You and Ted both like to say that over the years. What are the, I don't want to say unintended consequences, but like you believe in competition. You've now added 2 wide receivers to a group that you felt pretty good about. What's the kind of result from that? Because it's not like you're picking these guys to send a message to those guys.
No.
So what comes from that? Just greater competition?
Yeah, I think, you know, again, it's, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, I think, again, we got a really good room, and it's going to be really competitive to get on the field and get snaps and get targets and all those things, but that's the way you want it, right? You know, I mean, we need, you know, I mean, to win in this league, you have to have playmakers, and right now, across the board, at really all the skill positions, I feel pretty good about our playmakers, and we've got some young guys that are, again, going to have to develop in our offense and learn it, get comfortable with it before that can show. But we've got a lot of guys coming back that I think are just at the, you know, kind of the point in their career where they're about to take off, and we're excited about that.
Ryan, is there anyone comparable to Savion Williams in the NFL? I mean, maybe Deebo Samuel, but he's not 6'4", right?
Yeah, I know that, you know, some people will comp him a little bit, you know, to different guys. I think it's a little unfair to players coming in the league, you know, just because he's a unique guy. You know, I think he is a unique body type, you know. But he is one of those guys that I think just fits Matt's offense to a T, because you guys know how we use our receivers in the blocking game, which is, you know, not when scouts set out looking at receivers, it's not we don't watch blocking first. I can promise you that. But he, you know, he can do a lot of that stuff that he's going to ask that Matt asks of our guys to do, and then again, just the ability with the ball in his hands after the catch, I think is really unique, and I'll be interested to see how that evolves and how he evolves in his career and how Matt uses them, because I do think there's a lot of options there.
Is there a reason why he dropped so many passes?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, obviously you go through that and you see the number. We don't really have any issue with his hands, you know. I think it's, again, I think he's still developing, but he shows the ability, and I'm sure you guys have seen it in some of the clips. Like, he has an excellent ability to extend and pluck the football in traffic and make big time catches. So some of that is just, you know, consistency and cleaning that up, but we don't foresee that being a huge factor.
Brian, I think there were a lot of people surprised he was on the board. Williams, that is, at 87. Was there consideration at 54 with him?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, we wouldn't have had a problem taking him there. We had, at that particular pick, we had a number of options. So we went with what we went with Anthony, but anytime you pass up some players at a pick, and I don't know how many picks in between, you kind of have to, in your mind, say, okay, those guys are going to be gone. So when they're still available, it's a nice surprise, and it was excellent for our football team.
Has the defensive line class been pretty picked, or do you think there's still some people left?
No, the way I look at it right now, I think that there's some guys down there. Again, we're pretty far away from there's a number of picks before we pick, but it did get picked over pretty good. But there's some guys down there that we like, and we'll see how it falls tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, guys.